It's 10 minutes past 8. Yes, 11 now. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we're joined by Mr. Ade Ipaye, who is the Attorney General in Lagos State, as we continue our focus on security. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure.
Well, the big question everyone seems to be asking is, why are all of this happening, and how do we get ourselves out of this? You've got an interesting perspective on this. Tell us about it.
Well, why is it happening?
I guess. Okay, go on.
Yeah, that has a historical background to it. But without going into historical details, I must say that the reality is that we have in the country now a group of people who entertain a kind of ideology that is different from that of the majority of us. And they have insisted on making their impact felt. Now, the impact is being felt in a most dastardly way because we are having innocent people killed here and there. So we need to respond. And there are, in my view, two ways of doing it. One is the response that we see, the obvious one, using the armed forces, declaration of state of emergency, and so on and so forth. But that assumes that we have a lot of information because you need to know what you are fighting. And terrorism is hidden. So we need a lot of information, which leads us to the second aspect, that of using information. That is, working with the people on the ground to know what is happening at every point in time. And then having a record, and that is perhaps where the Lagos perspective might come in, having a record as much as possible of the people that are within the affected area, such that if anything happens, you are able to do some tracing, you are able to do some searching, you actually know what to look for.
What kind of record are we talking about here?
Okay, in Lagos, for instance, we are keeping a crime data register. And this register consists of most people that have passed through the criminal justice system in Lagos State since 2009. We are doing it more in a more intensive way now, but we started as far back as 2009. And that is, if someone gets arrested, maybe by the police, it's taken before a magistrate or a judge, is remanded in prison custody. We take full details of that person, the picture, the fingerprints, the signature, if he or she could sign, details like height, like description, and all of that. And we keep it in an electronic register, such that we can refer back, at any point in time. Because let us suppose you catch someone, you get a picture. So where does that lead you? You cannot run that through a population of, say in Lagos, you have about 21 million people trying to search for one person. But if he's likely to have been through the criminal justice system, then you run it through that database and see whether you can find him there, or he or she there. But if not, you also know that we are now having in Lagos State the residence registration, which has the aim of having all of us known. Because the problem of security is also the problem of anonymity. If I know that I could go in there, do something really terrible, and just simply disappear, which seems to be happening a lot these days, then I'm encouraged to do it. But if there's a likelihood that I will be found out and I will be punished, then I will think twice.
So the data deters people.
Oh, definitely. The knowledge that, I could be arrested, I could be found.
But how do you then deal with those who just come in, foment trouble, and leave?
Yes. Well, again, security is obviously a multifaceted exercise. At the borders, I mean, you need efficient border controls. You need efficient immigration personnel to be able to deal with that. But remember, even they need something to work with. You know, they cannot treat everyone that comes along as a criminal. They are better off if they had some records, if they had some reasons to believe that you are not who you claim you are, or you are who they suspect you to be, then they can act with full force. But if they are unsure, I mean, thousands of people pass through on a daily basis, it is unlikely that they will keep up the kind of efficient scrutiny that is required throughout. And we see this at other border control points abroad. They are not necessarily scrutinizing every individual that pass by, but they have a way of zeroing in on a few that they think they should look more closely at. You know. But information, I think, is at the bottom of it all. You need as much information as you can get.
So how are you circling the legal bottlenecks around this? Because a host of people would think that security, well, yes, it's chiefly the purview of the federal government. The agencies, for instance, at the borders, which you know you also which happens to be in your state, is manned chiefly by security officials from the federal government. Are you saying that you're going to be sharing information with them, or how is this supposed to work?
Yeah, information for security purposes need to be shared. Otherwise, it's almost useless. You have to share it. And it's interesting, the crime data register I spoke of resulted from the reality we found ourselves in, whereby I am Attorney General, I'm an agent of the state government. The judicial system, magistrates and judges are off Lagos State, but then we have to work with the police, a federal agency. We have to work with the prisons, a federal agency. And at a point, it became clear that people will be in prison awaiting trial. And I wouldn't know as Attorney General because they were arrested by the police and remanded, and I had no information. And this is exactly the sort of thing that provoked the crime data register. We all now craved a platform, you know, which had all the information that all of us could resort to. So this is information that the police could call for. Maybe they have a suspect, they want to know whether it is the same person they had had before. They could call for. In fact, they used to have one of the servers within their own premises. It's just that we had maintenance problems. But at any time, the police could write and request information on any number of suspects. In the same way, the prisons, they have found it useful because in the past we used to have people in prison custody who would pretend not to be there when they are called upon to go to court. They don't answer to their own names. And that was possible in a situation of anonymity where there are no clear proof of who is who. In fact, we found that at a point, a lot of people were going into prisons. Whenever they were to be remanded, they would use a false name. And sometimes they even forget the false name that they used. So when they are called upon to go to court to face trial, sometimes they deliberately keep away. Sometimes they don't even know that they are the ones being called. Okay, but the prisons have also found this register useful because you can put the face to the name and you can have a fingerprint check if that becomes necessary. So we all use the same data, and that is what is envisaged in when you talk of crime data. It's not something that could be used by only one agency in isolation.
That is interesting. I mean, you talked about people deliberately not wanting to go to court.
Oh, yes.
Why?
Why? Because they know that if they stay there long enough, 2 years, 3 years, then someone will come, an NGO will come, they will say, oh, I've been kept here, nobody is mentioning my case, and then they file fundamental rights enforcement, and they can go free. Because in the meantime, maybe the file is lost somewhere, the IPO, that's the police officer investigating the case, had been transferred out of Lagos. You see, they know that if they wait long enough,
A bit their time.
Things might just
We have a
disappear,
comment
so
from
to speak.
Babatunde Nifade says, what happened to the miscreants in Lagos, especially around Mushin area, that keep fighting every day? Do you have their database?
We have some, those that had, like I said, passed through the system. We are not in a position now to go get everybody's database for the crime data register, except those that had been arrested. So if they had been arrested, they had been processed through this system, yes, we would have their database. And the advantage of that is that if they are caught, if they are somehow released on this occasion and they are caught next time, and we have the picture, we have the name, we can search by name, we can search by the fingerprint, so we can determine that, oh, this is the same person that had committed that offense. And that will assist us in dealing with it.
Does that mean that a criminal or how do you deal with a situation where you have a criminal from another state who comes in, resides here to evade justice?
You see, this kind of system is not going to solve all problems. Okay, so you are going to have people still being anonymous because they had not been in Lagos anyway, they just came in, and it is at the point at which they do something wrong, they are arrested, and we are able to capture their records, that we get to know them for the first time. But ideally, this kind of system should be nationwide, at least to start with. It should be all of the people residing in this country, should be somewhere where government can have recourse to their details. We shouldn't be anonymous. Even planning by government of anything, housing, health, education, cannot be precise except you have these records.